Revenge films.
One day, my sister-in-law contacted me out of the blue. The reason why she contacted me was because she was going to Mouseland the next day, and she demanded that I go to their house and take care of her child. She also brazenly told me to clean their house while I'm at it. She would be so happy that she would be jumping for joy and get wisdom fever. My sister-in-law's daughter goes to kindergarten, and there were a couple of times when my sister-in-law asked me to fetch her daughter from kindergarten. However, this is the first time she asked me to take care of her child. My sister-in-law and I are not that close, so I'm surprised that she requested me to do this. Another thing that I don't understand is why I need to clean her house while I'm there. I have experience fetching her daughter from kindergarten and driving her home, but I've never stepped foot in their house yet. Also, I saw garbage bags scattered in front of their house, so I didn't have a clean image of their house. I asked her why me, and that I couldn't do as she requested, but she never listened to what I had to say. Of course, my husband and I do not accept her request. When I told her to ask her mother to do that instead, she replied with, "Mom will scold me if I ask her to take care of my daughter, when my reason is because I want to hang out with my friend. Shut up and just hurry up and prepare to take care of my daughter." She shouted those words at me, so I was infuriated. Aren't theme parks a place where kids are very happy to go? However, my sister-in-law plans to leave her child at home, and she plans to have all the fun to herself. I have no idea what goes on into my sister-in-law's pea-sized brain. My child goes to kindergarten too, but if I tell her that I'll be taking her to Mouseland, she'll be happy and excited that she will start having wisdom fever. I was furious with my sister-in-law's behavior because she selfishly plans to go to a place that is mainly for children without her child. I already told her that no, I won't do it. I was getting more and more irritated by my sister-in-law who kept talking and talking, so I hung up the phone and ended the conversation right there. Well, my sister-in-law was still blabbering about this and that on the other end of the call though. I was furious with my sister-in-law's behavior because she selfishly plans to go to a place that is mainly for children without her child. I already told her that no, I won't do it. That night, I talked to my husband about what his sister told me. My husband then told me a piece of information that I never heard before.
Did she really say that she's going out with her friend?
Huh? Yeah, why?
I heard that she's seeing someone. Several friends of mine told me that they saw her with a man.
What? So does that mean she's leaving her daughter to my care because she's going out with her boyfriend? What is she thinking? I feel sorry for her daughter. Apparently, my husband also thought the same. So after we talked about the matter, we decided to talk to her about it the next day. The topic is, could you please take care of my niece from my sister-in-law? So the next day, I went to my parents-in-law's house. I told my mother-in-law what my sister-in-law told me, and I also told her that since my sister-in-law is doing the best she can every day, and mothers with young children should also take a breather every once in a while. And then I asked my mother-in-law if she'd be fine taking care of her granddaughter. Of course, I predicted how my mother-in-law would react. Just as expected, she was furious.
"You went out to play around with a guy and neglected your daughter?"
My mother-in-law was very angry at my sister-in-law, so she came home immediately. Then the next day, "Daphne, how dare you tip my mother off about my whereabouts? You even told her who I was with. Oh, how did you even know that I was with a guy in the first place?" My sister-in-law called me on the phone the next day. Of course, I also predicted what her reaction to the situation would be. So the next day, I went to my parents-in-law's house, and I told my mother-in-law that my sister-in-law is very stressed and hysterical, so she should go check in on her daughter, to which my mother-in-law replied,
"You're right. Thank you for your concern and for informing me about this. I am worried about my granddaughter, so I'll go check on them."
So my mother-in-law breathed heavily and stormed into my sister-in-law's house. Looking at the piles of garbage bags outside her house, I imagined that the house was a mess inside. However, it was not just a mess. My mother-in-law saw that it was like a dumpster inside, way beyond what I expected it to be like. So my mother-in-law went pale and said,
"I can't believe my daughter was living in such a horrible place. I was very worried about how she was raising my granddaughter there."
And that's what she told me. My mother-in-law was holding her granddaughter's hand. It seemed like she brought her granddaughter home with her because of the severity of the situation that the little girl was in. According to what my mother-in-law told me, it was just as I expected to be inside the house, but even worse. The house was filled with trash and it was very filthy. She had a very bad feeling when she stepped into the house. Afraid to see what the situation inside might be, she knocked on the door, but was surprised to see that the door was ajar. She couldn't find my sister-in-law inside the house, but she found her granddaughter crying beside the pile of garbage bags. Her heart pained at the sight of the horrible situation that her granddaughter was in. Despite the efforts of desperately trying to restrain herself from going mad, she couldn't stop herself from going crazy. She clenched her teeth and pulled her granddaughter out of the filthy room. She took her granddaughter home, bathed her, and fed her, and assured her that everything was going to be all right. My mother-in-law then called my sister-in-law, but she didn't pick up the phone. Maybe she went out again with her boyfriend and neglected her daughter because her mother scolded her. Maybe also because I said no to her regarding taking care of her child for the whole day. My mother-in-law was angry.
My granddaughter was sitting and crying in the room filled with garbage and flies. That woman neglected her daughter and went out to have fun. Can you believe it? I will never forgive her.
My mother-in-law angrily said that while banging her fist on the table. Even though I was expecting my sister-in-law's house to be a mess, I didn't think that it would be that much dirty inside. I was even more shocked when I learned that she neglected her daughter. When I looked closer at my niece's dress, it was torn and there were holes in it, not to mention it was quite dirty. My mother-in-law immediately threw the shabby dress away. Since there was a shirt that my sister-in-law left at her parents' house, it was left there because there was a time when it was raining cats and dogs, and my sister-in-law arrived at her parents' house soaking wet. She changed into dry clothing and washed her wet clothes there. So my mother-in-law bathed her granddaughter in her bathtub, and then she made her wear her mother's clean shirt. I then called my husband with my phone and I explained to him what happened. Then, my husband, who also has a child with the same age as my sister-in-law's child, he then told me that he would stop by his parents' house on his way home from work because he will scold and punish his sister. And that is why I decided to wait at my parents-in-law's house. My husband and I, together with our child, live near my sister-in-law's house, so he sometimes gave his niece some food to eat. However, he was very shocked about the amount of garbage in the house. I guess my sister-in-law is the fuel of a person who can't keep her space clean. Since my niece was hungry, my mother-in-law cajoled up a meal and fed her. After filling up her stomach with sumptuous food, my niece started feeling drowsy, and a moment later, she was fast asleep on the living room sofa. She was sound asleep until the afternoon. My mother-in-law tried calling her daughter again and again. However, my sister-in-law's phone was turned off, so my mother-in-law couldn't reach her. After a while of doing this and that, it was time for my husband to come home from work. So he stopped by his parents' house where we were. With everyone in the house now, we were ready for my sister-in-law to arrive. Then, around 7:30 p.m., my sister-in-law heard the voice call from her mother. So she called me on the phone. However, I was stunned by what happened next. My sister-in-law learned that her daughter is in her parents' house, thanks to the voice call that her mother left her. She told me that she'll be scolded by her mother again if she sees her. So she told me to take her daughter home to her without getting noticed by my mother-in-law. I thought, what a prick she is. Of course, there was no way I was going to do as she requested. So I handed the phone to my mother-in-law directly after she said that. My mother-in-law was furious and yelled for my sister-in-law to come home immediately. After a few minutes, my sister-in-law finally arrived at her parents' house. The moment the front door opened, my mother-in-law's anger burst out.
How dare you neglect your daughter and go out to have fun all by yourself? I warned you not to do this again, didn't I? How many times do I have to tell you? And what is with that house where you're raising our daughter? It's overflowing with garbage. It's like a dumpster. Flies were flying around the kitchen waste, and you left my precious grandchild inside that filthy place.
You're trespassing on my property. Give me back my daughter. Christy, hurry up and come here. We're going home. My sister-in-law shouted at her daughter and tried to grab her arms, so I immediately stepped in between her and my niece. Then after that, my husband stood up and said,
You have no right to be a mother! Who were you with in the first place?
I already told you that I went out with a friend.
Liar! I know you went out with a guy! A friend of mine told me that she saw you with a guy holding hands!
You were with a guy today? You neglected your 3-year-old daughter to be with some guy? You good for nothing? You are unqualified to be a mother.
My mother-in-law was even more enraged by her daughter's behavior. She marched towards her and yanked her hair. My sister-in-law then let out a loud cry. Ouch! That hurts! Stop it, please! Then, my mother-in-law knocked my irresponsible sister-in-law down. Feeling completely defeated, my sister-in-law cried an ugly cry. After that, my mother-in-law decided that she can't have her granddaughter live in that filthy environment, so she made her daughter move to her house to live with her. At first, my sister-in-law was happy because it meant that there would be someone who would constantly look after her daughter, but it also meant that she would have her mother constantly monitoring her every move, so she regretted moving into her parents' home. Just as expected, my mother-in-law monitored my sister-in-law, and she also made her do all the chores at home. And of course, my sister-in-law couldn't hang out and leave her child at home, so she ended up breaking up with her boyfriend. Also, of course, my sister-in-law can't ask me to look after her daughter anymore, so she is now miserably living, crying every day. She had it coming. It serves her right.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.